So hello again from Boracay, and as part of living my ass off, greetings, it's Mike's from livemyassoff.com, and as part of living my ass off, I like to go to these other cultures and I like to experience the way that the locals live, sort of. At the end of the day, I still stay in tourist areas, and I still like to have the air conditioning on full blast, the windows open with screens, a down comforter, nice fluffy white towels, hot water, and a fridge and a stove. Not a stove, I don't like a stove. Fridge and a kettle so I can make coffee. I prefer a balcony. I prefer a balcony that's got an ocean view. So I'm not necessarily living like a but I do like to learn about these local cultures that I come visit. Okay, so here's the thing I want to talk about, the contrast, right? So Gracie and I we've been traveling now for just over 3 weeks. And so along the way, of course, we're appreciating the beauty in all these other countries that we're going to. We're having an exciting time. We're discovering new things. And then, of course, we're talking about the contrast, the differences of the United States versus the Philippines. Because she's Filipino, she grew up here, and has been working and living on the island of Boracay for 14 years now. So she's got a pretty good viewpoint of, what it's like to grow up in the province, but also what it's like to live in a tourist area and to interface with people that are 100% on vacation 100% of the time she's interfacing. So that's been kind of interesting. But here's the specific contrast I want to talk about right now, and it revolves around healthcare and the ability to stay alive but get well and that sort of thing. So I learned recently that if you are in the hospital, specifically the ER in this scenario, but also in other hospitals. In the hospital in Boracay, in the Philippines, even if you have PhilHealth, which is basically the sort of lowest available level of healthcare you can get as a Filipino, and I believe it's actually also open to expats if they want to pay for it. I do not know what PhilHealth costs. I believe it is provided to everyone who works. I don't know, but I can tell you that it is, while imperfect, it is definitely healthcare that not everybody has, but I believe it's available to everybody. Regardless, it's one of those deals where it's the least amount. Even with PhilHealth, I discovered that if you're going to have an operation, whether it's like you need one right away because you've just been sent to the ER because you had a big accident, and they know that during this process of this operation that you're gonna lose blood as part of it, and therefore they need to replenish that blood. So they need a bag of blood, that's your type, so that you can not die. That, unfortunately, depending upon what kind of coverage you have, that isn't necessarily just available, and the doctor doesn't just say, "Oh yeah, go get me some of that." They have this. I discovered that depending upon sort of the amount of healthcare and or money that you have, or the quality of hospital you're in, that sort of thing, that if you are going to have an operation, if they're preparing for this operation, of course they have the doctor consult and that sort of thing, but they say, okay, well, where are we going to get blood? And if they know you're going to need blood, then they say, okay, well, either you buy this blood or you find someone of your type to donate some blood, and then we can use some blood, provided that you replenish what we believe we're going to use. And so that was very interesting to me, because I was listening to some Filipinos discuss that, okay, well, we need to go get some blood. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you mean you need to go get it? And they're like, well, yeah, we need to get blood so that this person can have an operation. And that was very foreign to me. I wasn't aware of that, and so I posted this little thing on Facebook. And so one of my buddies, Bobby, he made the comment, yeah, not every country has blood banks like we do in the US. And I'm like, really? And again, my Western thinking, right? My narrow-minded Western thinking, or not necessarily narrow-minded Western thinking, but my limited exposure to global healthcare, to global, I don't know, medical treatment, whatever. The point is that I said, of course, yeah, right. I just assumed it's, no, you're right. Not everyone has a blood bank. So then I thought, okay, so how does that work? And this Filipino friend of mine who's on Facebook, she said, well, actually, we do have blood banks here. But unfortunately, it's not one of those things where regardless of who you are, if you come in and you need blood, it depends on your ability to pay. Not necessarily your social class, but traditionally those two are synonymous, social class and financial standing, right? So if you got the cash and or you have Epic insurance, meaning you had the cash to buy Epic insurance, then you'll be able to get this blood. Otherwise, you have to go get it and you have to go buy it. So that was a very interesting contrast to me. But again, it's one of the things I really love about travel, right? Is I discover these things that I never would have known about. Like, what article would I have read? I mean, I'm sure if I were to read some article about that where I would learn this nugget of knowledge, it would sadly probably be around some article of some poor Westerner that got in an accident over here and either pissed off the wrong people or didn't have the right health coverage because he thought, well, I've got health coverage in the United States. Everywhere I go in the world, that should cover it, right? And he, for whatever reason, like lost his wallet, didn't have money, whatever sob story might have shown up that Time Magazine or CNN or USA Today wanted to exploit to basically sell advertising, to paint a picture of the Philippines having just horrible health care and, oh my God, you know, this guy, he had to go get his own blood. That said, it's one of those things where, while interesting, disappointing, it was also kind of motivating, because I'm like, okay, so if you're a Filipino and you're like, okay, well, I gotta have a family, or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna prepare for my future, how am I gonna make it better? Well, I potentially need to go out and I need to earn more money so that I can get better health insurance. So heaven forbid, if something happens to me or my mom or my dad or my sister or my son or daughter or whatever, then I'm gonna have this health insurance in place so I don't have to basically walk down the street and see if I can find somebody who's also A negative, so that they can donate blood so I can have this operation that I got going on. So, you know, say what you will about that, but it's also kind of motivating. Additionally, it's sort of like, okay, well, you know, it kind of lends to the fact that, like, you know, look, it's part of capitalism, right? It's how you pay for it. And as far as I know, in the United States, regardless of your social class or level of sort of like financial standing, if you show up in the ER, even if you're an incredibly poor person, I believe we legally have to treat you. I don't believe that we can kick anybody out. Now, the poor guy that doesn't have any insurance or doesn't have any identification or doesn't have any cash, he probably has to wait longer than the guy that is part of an HMO, where I just walk in with my ID and say, oh yes, hello, Mr. Somerville, you know, because they have all my records and I've been paying them monthly thousands of dollars, you know, or whatever, as part of my plan, you know, to get it. So I think, you know, and you say, well, that's great, Mike, you pay for that. Yeah, but the poor guy that like doesn't have any cash or whatever, we still treat him. Maybe not necessarily as well as someone else, but we do, and that costs thousands of dollars. Well, who pays for that? Me, the guy that basically shells out, you know, extra, and that's why health insurance, you could argue, is so expensive in the United States. I'm not trying to bitch, and I'm not like setting a platform of like, this is Mike's position on healthcare. But just from a financial perspective, it's like, look, if you don't have the cash, you don't get the service. If I don't have $10,000, I can't buy the latest brand new Samsung curved, you know, flat screen TV. I get it. That's more of a want, and it's not a need. Healthcare, keeping people alive, making sure you're not going to die, that's infinitely more important than a freaking TV. But the reason I bring that up is it's like, if you don't have the cash, you know, you can't get the service, that sort of thing. So I can kind of understand where they're coming from. But anyways, just an interesting perspective. And I hope as you travel or you experience new people or as you go to new places or as you have new discussions at a Starbucks and you're hopefully opening your mind, that you're saying, okay, well, how is that different than where I'm from? And the thing that I'm really trying to focus on in 2017, sort of one of those goals, not necessarily a resolution, but a goal, is like, how am I potentially, you know, I guess I'm judging it, but not so much better, worse, but how is it different? And what can I learn from it? Like, how is the way they do things here in the Philippines better than the way they do it other places? Potentially it's better the way they do it in Vietnam. I don't know. Is it better than the way that we do things in Chula Vista? I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to share that experience because I think it's important, like as you go through life, as I go through life, to look at these different contrasts. So that's just one specific thing that's different over here in the Philippines. Anyway, wherever you're watching this, I hope you're safe and happy. I hope you're living the dream, because if you're not living the dream, you're doing it wrong. Ciao.